Amalia Reyes, had grown used to the sound of the afternoon wind brushing past her homestead porch. It was a lonely sort of comfort, the kind that settled into a woman's bones when her days were filled with nothing but chores, silence, and the wide Montana horizon. But on certain days every few weeks, never on a strict schedule, the loneliness broke. Because, on those days, Daniel Holt rode through. She never saw him arrive. He never knocked, never called out. But at dusk, there would always be a folded envelope wedged beneath the top wire of her fence post, sealed with neat handwriting that had become as familiar to her as her own. Miss Amalia Reyes, thought of you when I crossed the Wyoming line today. There was a sunset you would have admired. Looked like God brushed the sky with a gambler's deck of red and gold cards. Amalia, read each letter slowly, gently, as though hurrying might break the fragile magic between them. Daniel was a traveling cowboy who drifted from ranch to ranch, hired where needed. She had met him once 8 months ago when he stopped at her ranch to water his horse. From a 5-minute conversation came a friendship written in ink. But recently, his words had shifted. I reckon. I look forward to your porch more than the pay I ride toward. Your name sits on my tongue more than any song I know. If the world were kinder, Miss Amalia, I'd stay longer. Amalia's heart learned to beat differently with each letter. She replied only once a simple thank you, left under the same fence post. He never asked for more, never pushed. Still, every line he wrote made her wonder what Daniel was holding back, what roads he traveled, what dangers followed him. That late autumn afternoon, she spotted a dust trail on the horizon, the sign of a rider leaving. Too far to see his face, but she knew his silhouette. He always left just before she stepped outside. She walked to the fence post after he was gone. The envelope waited, pinned carefully. But this letter was longer, heavier. Inside, Daniel wrote, Miss Amalia, this might be my last time passing through for a while. Trouble's been riding at my heels, and I'd rather it not find its way to your door. If I do not return soon, don't reckon it's because I forgot you. It's because remembering you has kept me riding straight. Daniel Holt. Amalia read it 3 times. Her fingers shook. Something in the phrasing made her chest tighten, not sadness, but fear. That night, she stood on her porch, looking westward, clutching the letter. Something was wrong, and deep down, she knew his words were a goodbye he didn't want to give. But the horizon was wide, and she was no helpless woman. And if Daniel Holt was in danger, she would go find him. Amalia left at dawn. She packed only what she needed: water, dried jerky, a coil of rope, and every letter Daniel had ever left her. They sat in her saddlebag, like a quiet chorus, urging her on. Her mare, Starling, snorted with excitement, as if she sensed an adventure coming. Amalia glanced once at her quiet homestead empty porch, still windmill, unlit lantern, then nudged Starling forward. Daniel had mentioned his route in passing within a few letters. Cattle work near Cedar Gulch, fence repairs around Painted Rock Ridge, and a bunkhouse job at a ranch called the Darrow Spread. It wasn't much to go on, but it was enough. For 2 days, she rode steadily, stopping only when Starling needed rest. The land stretched wide and lonely. Dry creeks, faded wagon ruts, the occasional hawk circling overhead. Daniel had traveled this way many times. On the 3rd afternoon, she reached the Darrow Spread, a worn-down ranch sprawled across a wide plain. Smoke rose from the chimney. Several horses grazed out front. A ranch hand leaned on the railing, watching her approach. Looking for someone, Amalia said as she reined in. Daniel Holt. The man's face changed, tightened, wary. You can. No, but I'm a friend. He looked her over, then exhaled sharply. He was here. Left maybe 2 weeks ago. Fellow was limping, had a busted rib. Said he'd been jumped by some men he used to ride with before he quit their crew. Amalia's stomach dropped. The ranch hand lowered his voice. The Bramwell gang. She knew the name. Everyone in Montana did. Cattle thieves turned killers. Daniel, she realized, hadn't wanted trouble at her doorstep because it wasn't small trouble at all. It was death riding on horseback. Last I heard, the ranch hand added. He headed toward the old mining town near Redwater Bluff. Wanted to warn someone there. Didn't say who. Amalia thanked him and turned her horse, adrenaline burning through her fear. Daniel needed help. Real help. But she had only herself and the courage she hoped would be enough. By dusk, she reached the empty mining road. The air felt colder here, the wind carrying a strange hush. She dismounted, checking for tracks. Hoofprints, fresh. Then she saw it. A torn scrap of paper wedged beneath a rock. Her breath caught. It was Daniel's handwriting. If anyone finds this, Bromwell riders are close. Can't risk leading them into town, trying to pull them away. If I don't make it. The bottom was ripped off. Amalia closed her eyes. Fear twisting her insides. He was alive, running alone. Not anymore. She mounted Starling, jaw set. Whatever waited beyond the ridge, she was going to find him, even if she had to face the Bramwell gang herself. The air grew tense as Amalia rode toward Redwater Bluff. The mining town sat abandoned, its wood buildings sun-bleached and sagging. Wind whistled through broken windows. Perfect place for an ambush. She scanned the ground. More hoofprints. Some deep meaning. A rider had been fleeing hard. Others lighter, scattered pursuers. Her heart pounded. She reached for her saddlebags, pulling out Daniel's letters. She wasn't sure why, but holding them steadied her. One line echoed in her memory. If the world were kinder, Miss Amalia, I'd stay longer, she whispered. I'm here now, Daniel. Then nudged Starling into the town's center. A sudden gunshot cracked through the silence. Starling reared, and Amalia ducked instinctively. Another shot echoed from the far end of town. Amalia kicked her mare into a gallop, racing toward the sound. She found Daniel behind an overturned wagon, firing at two riders circling the nearby hill. His arm was bloody and dust streaked his face. But his eyes widened the second he saw her. Amalia. His voice cracked with disbelief. What are you doing here? Saving you, she shouted, sliding off her horse and ducking behind the wagon beside him. He pressed his back against the wood, breathing hard. I told you not to come. You stopped writing. What else was I supposed to do? He looked at her, then really looked. There was fear in his eyes, but also relief. Maybe something deeper. You shouldn't be in the middle of this, he whispered. Too late, she replied, loading the rifle she'd brought. Where are the others? To left Bramwell's boys. They've been dogging me for days. A bullet splintered the wagon wheel. Amalia aimed carefully and fired back. One rider ducked behind a fallen beam. Daniel stared at her in awe. You can shoot. Grew up on a ranch, remember? Fee laughed weakly. Didn't know that meant sharpshooter. They exchanged quick glances, syncing without words. She fired to draw attention. Daniel used the moment to relocate behind a water trough. A rider charged forward, and Daniel managed to hit the horse's stirrup, throwing the outlaw to the ground. The second rider yelled and retreated behind a shed. Amalia crawled to Daniel's side. You're hurt. It's just a scratch. He winced. A big scratch. She tore a strip from her skirt and tied his arm. He watched her hands, his breathing slowing. Amalia, he said softly, I didn't want you in danger. That's why I stayed away. I know. She tightened the knot. But you don't get to vanish without a word. Daniel swallowed hard. I thought if I kept riding, you'd be safe. Gunfire interrupted them, the last rider making another pass. Amalia steadied her rifle. Stay behind me. Daniel blinked. What? She stepped forward, unshaken. I didn't ride all this way to lose you. Her shot rang through the mining town like thunder. Silence followed. When she turned back, Daniel wasn't looking at the fallen rider. He was looking at her, with something like love. You need stitching, she said, and rest. Rest sounds mighty fine, he muttered, leaning back against a mining cart. But I doubt Bramwell himself is far behind. Amalia froze. You think he's coming? Bramwell doesn't like being crossed, Daniel said. I stole his ledger proof of every cattle theft he committed. Thought turning it in might buy me a peaceful life. Her breath caught. You were going to quit drifting. Daniel's eyes lifted to hers, soft and uncertain. Yeah, and go where? She pressed. He looked away. Your porch wasn't a bad sight. The words hit her like a spark, catching dry grass. Heat flushed her cheeks. For a moment, the danger around them faded. Only the wind and their heartbeats filled the air. Daniel, she whispered. Why didn't you say that sooner? He chuckled, dryly. Hard to court a woman through letters you leave in the dust. It worked, she replied, before she could stop herself. Daniel blinked. It did. She nodded. Every time you wrote, it felt like someone finally saw me. Not just the ranch, not the chores. Me. Emotion flickered across his face. Gratitude. Longing. I wanted to stay, he said quietly. But the closer I got to you, the more danger followed at my back. Bramwell doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. Amalia touched his cheek gently. You should have let me decide if you were worth the risk. Daniel caught her hand, holding it against his skin. I didn't think you'd choose me. I did, she said. I do. Daniel's breath shuddered. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. But footsteps echoed suddenly across the wooden planks. Amalia grabbed her rifle. A familiar voice called out, Hold your fire, Sheriff's office. 3 riders approached Sheriff Nolan and 2 deputies. Daniel sagged with relief. Been tracking Bramwell's men 3 days, Nolan said as he dismounted. You did us a favor, taking out these 2. They loaded the outlaws' bodies onto horses. Nolan glanced at Daniel. You look half dead, Holt. Feel half dead, Daniel admitted. Amalia stepped forward. He needs a doctor. We'll take you both back to Clearwater, the sheriff said. Safe town. Good folks. Daniel squeezed her hand. You coming with me? Amalia smiled softly. I rode across half the state for you. I'm not stopping now. They climbed onto Starling together, Daniel leaning against her for support. As they rode away from Redwater Bluff, Amalia felt the weight of uncertainty lift, replaced by something steady and bright hope. Daniel rested his head against her shoulder. Amalia. Yeah. Thank you for finding me. She kissed his temple. I'd find you anywhere. Clearwater was warm and welcoming. A town humming with life vendors, shouting, children running, horses clopping along the main road. Daniel was taken straight to the doctor's office, where Amalia stayed firmly at his side, while his wounds were cleaned and stitched. He hissed, cursed, and glared, but he never let go of her hand. You're stubborn, she teased. Only when it comes to staying alive for you, he shot back. Afterward, they rested at the town's small and Donio lay in bed, looking tired but alive. Amalia sat in a rocking chair beside him, flipping through his letters again. You kept them, he said softly. Everyone. He shifted, wincing. There were more things I wanted to write. Her gaze lifted. Then tell me. No fences, no paper. He swallowed. All right. I wanted to tell you that every mile I rode, I wished I was riding back to you. That your porch felt more like home than any bunkhouse. That when I stopped writing, I missed you so much, it hurt worse than getting shot. Her eyes stung. Daniel, and I wanted to ask, he continued, if a man like Medrifter Trollmaglet, badly stitched together, could ever earn a place in your life. She stood, moved to his bedside, and brushed a thumb along his jaw. You already did. Daniel pulled her into a careful embrace, burying his face in her shoulder. Amalia Reyes, you saved me. You saved me first, she whispered, with your letters. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, they walked outside the inn. Daniel leaned on her arm for support. The horizon glowed pink and gold like a sunset from one of his letters. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a fresh envelope. For you, he said. She arched a brow. Another letter. Open it. Inside was only one sentence. I'm staying. Amalia laughed a bright full sound and threw her arms around him. Daniel wrapped her close, kissing her gently beneath the fading sky. He whispered, if you'll have me, Amalia, I'd like to build something with you. A life. A porch we both sit on. She kissed him again. I'd like that very much. As they held each other, the sheriff approached. Bramwell's been captured, he announced. You two can breathe easy now. Daniel exhaled shakily. That means I'm free. Amalia nodded. Free to start over. And free, Daniel added, kissing her forehead, to love you the way I meant to all along. They stood together, watching the horizon, this time not as strangers bound by distance, but as two hearts finally side by side. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.